Guys, today we're gonna be making the synthesizer that David Tort used on his remix of California by Doray. This synthesizer was actually was a request from one of my subscribers, and I decided, what the hell, let's make it, since the synthesizer is a very popular one. Guys like Afrojack or even like Afrojack, Like Bad Luke, Swedish House Mafia, and even David Guetta at some point used this synthesizer for their tracks. So this is gonna be a synthesizer oriented towards bass lines. You can use it as a lead synthesizer, but in a special way. You need to actually write the whole thing to be like a drop or like a main theme or like a main loop of the track, and it's up to you and your creativity in the end. So we're gonna start by initializing a new fresh patch for this synth. And the first thing that we're gonna do is to set up this oscillator down 1 octave, increase its voices all the way up to 3, excuse me. The wave, we're gonna change it to a sine wave, and the panning, we're gonna put it around -267. Just so you know, the panning settings here depend on your mixdown preferences and your ears, and how do you think the track will sound better, since the synthesizer, actually I'm making it as generic as possible, so you can use it on your own productions. You don't need to actually do a remake of the remix for it to sound good. You can pretty much fire up the patch and lay down whatever you want on it, and you'll have a new track. So let's continue. Oscillator A2, we're gonna leave it like so. We're gonna increase the voices up to 3. The wave, we're gonna put it at sawtooth, and panning for this case, it's gonna be at -162. Amp envelope. The amp envelope is gonna be the same for A and B actually. The attack is going to be all the way down to 0. The decay is going to be at 431. Sustain down to 0, and release around 270. It can be 270, 269, it doesn't matter. It's pretty much the same. We're going to go ahead and do this one also. 431. There. Sustain all the way down to 0, and release at 270. 269, 270, there. Now, the filter A. Filter A is going to be set up like this. Cutoff all the way down to 0. Resonance all the way down to 0. Drive 0. And we're going to select a low pass filter. The filter control, we're going to put the cutoff frequency at 120.88 Hertz. And the resonance, we're going to leave it at 0. The previous to last part of this side of the synthesizer is actually a mode envelope. The mode envelope is going to give the synthesizer that plucky feel when you play it. So we're going to route it to the cutoff all the way up, and we're going to put these settings as so. The attack at 0, the decay at 414, sustain to 213, and release at 523. So you have a plucky feeling with a little bit of tail here also. Now, the mono legato, we're going to turn it on. Mode, slide, the portamento, we're going to put it at 333. Actually, this portamento is going to be really subtle, just so so you don't have any blank spaces in between notes when you actually play the synthesizer. Now let's go back and switch pages, part B. Actually, this part is just, we're just gonna use one oscillator. So we're gonna use oscillator B1. So B1 is gonna be set up as so, like so. Voices 3, wave, sine, rhetoric on, and panning to the center. Filter B is gonna be 2080 hertz for the cutoff frequency. 2088, and we're gonna select a high pass filter. Input B, resonance 0, drive 0, and that's it for the external parts of the synthesizer. We're gonna turn on the EQ and the compressor. The compressor is gonna be like so. We're not gonna touch anything here, and we're gonna change stuff here on the EQ. Bass, we're gonna roll it all the way down to 0, and the treble we're gonna roll it to 3, around 3 actually. That's it, and that's pretty much it for a synth. Actually, something that I recommend is that you route the velocity of your keyboard to the mix AB for the main volume, so you actually can track each one of the notes, and depending on how hard you play them, you will have a very responsive synthesizer here. So we're gonna move on to the chain on the next section, and we're gonna explain what each one of these devices do. Okay, so with the patch that we made already, we're gonna start going through each one of these components, these elements in this chain, for the synthesizer to sound properly. First, we're gonna turn off the whole chain so you can hear the synthesizer without any kind of processing. It's actually pretty close to the sound that we're looking for, but we need to tune it down a little bit. So we're gonna fire up just the equalizer, set up like this. Especially something that you need to remember is that the mid range for this synthesizer needs to be pulled down really low for it to have that character. Now, since the synth still lacks a little bit of grit, we're gonna use an overdrive, and we're gonna actually automate the width of the filter from this overdrive, and also the cutoff frequency for this filter. And the whole idea behind controlling this synthesizer is gonna be, it's actually gonna come from these two components right here. So let's see how it sounds with the overdrive. Sounds a little bit grittier, but it's still a little bit messy. Since we already have this kick running here, you don't need to actually use the sausage fattener here or the compressor. You can run a kick straight to this sidechain compressor that we set up right here. Just route it, select the kick, put the attack all the way down to 0, the release at 17.5 milliseconds. You can actually tweak it depending on your mix down technique or your mix down preferences. Also the threshold and the output and the ratio and you can pretty much move everything around this compressor, since the only thing that it's gonna do is just squash the signal so it makes room for the kick and makes it sound a little bit fuller. So the sound is right there. Now the control scheme that I told you about earlier comes from this filter and this filter here. I like this overdrive here since it's not just an input-output distortion. It allows you to actually shape and tailor your input and then distort it. What we're gonna automate is this filter, the width of the filter, and the position of the cutoff for the auto filter. So when you run it as a high pass, you have the first part of the synth for the intro, and for the drop, for the first drop, you deactivate it and you have the big synth. Now for the first part like this, you need to put the overdrive like so, like this, for it to sound a little bit smaller. But then, let me close this. When we go to the part without the high pass, we have a full track. So that's pretty much it behind this synthesizer. I'm gonna be doing the same thing that I did with the Cthulhu Sleeps synth. I'm gonna be uploading a PDF with all the settings for silence, and also I'm gonna be uploading the whole project with the MIDI notes and this chain and everything. Actually, feel free to make any changes that you want to this patch in order for you to tailor your sound more correctly or according to your liking. Since Norman Doray and David Tort already did this, why do you want to do it again? It's better if you do something different, something cooler, something more original. So that's it for this time, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And check out my music, follow me on Facebook, SoundCloud, Twitter, everywhere. Stalk me as Tolly Gold